Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Life from the Inside Out with Kris. Before we begin with Kris's unparalleled metaphysical content, I know that many of you watching have felt a sense of being ungrounded, unhinged, or out of balance in these times. I know. I've felt this way too. Kris's teachings have similarities to popular ideas such as the law of attraction and the secret. The difference is that Kris's knowledge goes even deeper into reality creation and helps resolve many of the problems identified with the law of attraction. The information he shares helps restore grounding and that sense of balance that many of us have lost in these times. If you're ready for the law of attraction and secret 2.0 and want to be a part of this fantastic community, then hit that like button, subscribe, drop a comment below, and press the bell icon so that you get notified when Kris releases cool, new metaphysical content. Kris also offers life-changing online seminars, private sessions, and mentoring sessions, which are all linked in the description below. Glad you're here with us, and let's jump into it. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Life from the Inside Out with Kris. And I know last time we talked a lot about the imagination. We built some on our discussions about imaginary friends and the role of imagination in creating our realities. We had our group panel, and there was a number of just fantastic questions and discussions. And today we have another special episode. We're here with one of our friends, and we're going to be doing a talk with the three of us. So I'm really excited. And Myrna, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Dan. Hello. What can I say? I've been with Kris a very long time. And I suppose the testimonial is something that she said to me not too long ago, was the Myrna that they met 18 years ago is barely recognizable. And that is with the wisdom that I've been given, the practice that I involve myself in, the understanding, which is I've not received, and I've been a student of much over my lifetime, and nothing like what I've been exposed to with Kris has made such a significant difference. And I guess one more thing, Dan, and that is, I think I'd label my journey from powerless to powerful.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here with us, and I know we're looking forward to talking with Kris and a number of questions. And Serge, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. I'm just a little low-key today, but it's kind of a windy, rainy, on and off day, so I fit right in with the weather.
Funny how that happens sometimes.
So I guess I'll just let the old guy in.
All right, I guess we'll get started.
Now we trust that you are comfortable, and we thank you for your consideration.
Aw, thank you, Kris.
You made mention of previous discussions concerning the imagination, children's imaginary friends, and we might indeed like to pursue that line of discussion, especially with the imagination. Now, for some, the imagination may appear as an impediment, a stumbling block, or a source of frustration. For others, it can actually be a great source of creativity. All in all, that is exactly what it is, a great source of creativity, but it never necessarily operates alone. It is not like a standalone application or computer program. it is indeed tied in with your emotions and feeling tones. It is deeply tied into all the physical functions and hormonal functions of your body, your brain. And as such is quite a powerful tool. Some have referred to it as little more than a receiver. Some have referred to it as a powerful tool, and we tend to follow that line of thinking. It is a powerful mechanism of consciousness. The end of it, which you experience as the images or the imagery and the vignettes and all of the full-fledged cinematic performance in your mind, that is one side of this powerful tool. It does assist in the creation of your daily events, conditions, and circumstances. It helps you plot your journey, plan out your journey through the physical representation of time and space, but it does not exist specifically in the context of time and space, nor do your feelings, nor do your emotions. The parts that you experience are more or less tailored to your human neurology and biology, but it goes well beyond that scope. It is not limited. It is not as if when you decide to leave or vacate your physical body, then nothing exists anymore. Nor do you simply merge into a big blob of consciousness and completely lose your identity. You retain those, but your imagination, your feelings, and your emotions are opened up quite significantly. And whilst you are in the physical, you can learn to harness their greater function. And in this particular side of it, in terms of the imagination, not only draws to you specific ideas based upon your own personal belief systems, your own expectations. It goes well beyond that function. But let us begin with the idea of how you set up the basic functions of your imagination with your beliefs and expectations. So we have spoken a little bit about this in the past. We have often referred to it as always worrying and expecting the other shoe to drop. So it is called catastrophizing. Always expecting a catastrophe to occur, simply because in your past somewhere there might have been something that did not quite meet with your ideas, so you consider it a catastrophe. So you import all of that catastrophizing into so many other areas of your life that it is as if anything that you undertake will obviously end up as a catastrophe. And of course, that is overstating and generalizing to a large degree often things that do not necessarily exist. It could easily be said that the amount of time, the amount of energy, the efforts you spend on worrying and catastrophizing probably take up about 80% of your energy and your mind. However, what actually happens in line with that catastrophizing may actually exist on a scale of perhaps 1%. So it is often blown out of proportions almost on a cosmic level, as if the slightest thing that you want to engage in is going to bring the entire cosmos a crumbling around your feet. And no one has that kind of power. No one and no thing and no supernatural beings. In spite of what Hollywood and your MCU, Marvel Comics Universe, might like to present, no one has that kind of ability or power. So there are different ways to curb the influence of your capacity to catastrophize, to imagine the worst possible scenarios. And one of them is to immediately, when you recognize that you do worry incessantly in those lines, is to end any form of decision making that you do in the evening, or that you might want to do, or as you toss and turn, believing that you must make a decision about something that you've been fantasizing about in the worst possible way. Wait till you have a good amount of sleep. Wait till you awaken in a fresh mind. And you might have a completely different mindset. So that is one simple little thing that you can do. There are others as well, but this is one of the most important, is to learn to abandon decision making at night, especially when you toss and turn. The second one is, of course, learn to be compassionate with yourself. Learn to be kind with yourself. Because most of the time when you catastrophize, when you imagine the worst possible scenario, what are you doing but beating yourself up? No wonder you are exhausted when you awaken in the morning, because you have been beating yourself up all night long. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I follow you, Kris.
The old saying that you get what you concentrate upon, of course, does apply. So if this is what you concentrate on, then of course you are creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. So yes, what you catastrophize may indeed show up in your life if you keep it going. So the idea is to divert, literally to dam up this great river of incessant worry and manage that energy. And you will find in a short amount of time that indeed you are able to get a better night's sleep. Your physical, emotional, and mental health will improve, because incessant worry in this way also leads to some mental health problems, including higher and higher levels of anxiety, which simply brings you into great periods of insomnia, anger, angst, and so on and so forth, frustration, depression. So it is well worth taking the time to recognize that it is not necessary for you, as well as to recognize that no amount of any worry that you have ever literally pitched at yourself has ever solved anything. Look carefully. It is not as if you need to worry to solve any situation, because it has never solved any situation. Coming to that recognition goes indeed a very long way in resolving this issue that you have of perhaps literally misusing one of your greatest resources in reality creation, the power of your imagination. This simple little process can indeed go again a very long way in improving the quality of your life at almost every level. Does that make sense to you?
It does, and I have to imagine it's going to connect with a number of our viewers. I mean, I think this is a very common thing in our, society.
Indeed, especially over the last few years. With everything that seems to be going on, it seems entirely logical and rational to just keep worrying about everything, as if miraculously, out of all the individual and collective worry, some great answer will pop out of the jack-in-the-box. And unfortunately, there is no such a thing.
Well, if I may share, I was the perfect prototype of expecting the other shoe to drop, as you well know. It was part of my family dynamic, and I adopted it very early in order to fit in. The conditioning of when something happens, the conditioning that it's like in nanoseconds, I'm already into this. Like it's like it passes my brain and into. So, what has worked for me, finally, is to catch the feeling tone. And you have a lot to say about internal reality creating external reality. Catch my feeling tone in the moment and trust. And this is the big deal. My conditioning of is something I counted on. It was a strategy I developed. It might not have been great for me, but it's what I knew, and it was very hard to change. So finally, catch my feeling tone. And then you've given us a number, and we can't do it tonight, certainly maybe over other nights, a number of other techniques for once I know my feeling tone is anxiety, fear, whatever it is, catch myself. And what I've been using a lot of is EFT, which you introduced to us years and years and years ago. And I am amazed how that changes my feeling tone. And as a result, my external world changes. It's the catching of it, though. And I've had to make space for myself to catch myself, because in a busy life with so much going on, it's very hard to catch that immediate adrenaline, that immediate anxiety, and it just builds on itself. So when I can
Indeed, it does take practice, it takes training, because that particular habit, that switch is flipped on instantaneously the moment anything triggers the particular patterns of anxiety, of angst, of fear, and of worry, and it is automatic, it's on autopilot. You have trained yourselves that any time anything flirts with your triggers, there's an immediate reaction.
Totally.
So by becoming aware, by sensitizing yourself to those patterns within you when they are about to kick in, again, is greatly beneficial. And as soon as you do recognize that you have just gotten on another one of those trains heading for a brick wall with no brakes, then you can jump the tracks. You get off that ride. Otherwise, you are like a hamster on a wheel that just never stops. And it is exhausting. It drains you mentally, physically, psychologically. It distorts the views of reality. Specifically, it gives you the false impression that things in reality happen to you. Reality itself is not something that happens to you. It is something that happens for you. And that is very significant.
Yes.
The reason that happens for you is that it lets you know exactly what kind of internal conditions you have set up. And then you meet them three-dimensionally, face to face. And if you do not like what you have created, then it is time to back off, go back to the drawing board, and remove, literally remove all of this anxiety and this angst and worries and fears that literally drain you. Put that on hold and create a brand new program that matches the understanding that life is not out to get you. Your life does not suck. But instead, life itself is a perfect reflection of your state of mind. You stated earlier in a previous discussion with Dan and Joseph, before we began to record, what is the most important theme in your life?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
What is the most important thing in my life right now?
Yes.
Understanding how I create my reality. Yeah.
You're a little bit warm. Keep going. Or let us put it to you this way. Who is the most influential person in your life?
Me.
Indeed.
Me.
It is not your parents, it is not your grandparents, it is not your great-great-grandchildren that may exist in the future, it is not your government, it is not your priest, it is not your deities, it is you. You are the one who talks to yourself all day long. And you do even more talking multidimensionally when you dream. So you are the most important thing. You are also the most important theme in your life. It's all you. Once that begins to sink in, you may start recognizing that you have just been offered a different perspective on life, and that begins to alter your perception. That nothing and no one can make you do anything except yourself. The old saying that what you agree to persists is very significant here. If something no longer suits your life, suits your purpose, suits your goals, then either you change it or you continue that way and keep going on the same track, or again, get off that track, create something more different, better, something that suits and fulfills you in ways that you didn't before. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, because I now know, after so many years of listening to you, that there's no outside and there's no other. It's me as energy and my deep or wider or higher self creating everything. So
Indeed.
everything's a mirror of my feeling tones and my imaginings. I put it all here.
So when we may mention to someone, what does the voice of inner criticism remind you of? Some will say, it reminds me of my father or my mother or my uncle or my brother or my sister or my boss or my this or my that. It may indeed do that. But more significantly still, you have internalized and parroted that voice and those words that you utilize to put yourself down repeatedly. So it is not somebody else doing it to you. You have internalized and parrot that voice to remind you, perhaps it was my mother, perhaps it was my father, perhaps it was so-and-so. But more directly, you have parroted that voice, you have kept it right by your ear. Because you might have believed that they might be correct. So you keep the self-criticism. And we can tell you that self-criticism cripples your very being. You utilize it because you are afraid of being yourself. So you literally cripple, you hobble yourself, so you do not have to make any hard decisions in life, such as perhaps you need to get out of a relationship, perhaps you need to change your job, perhaps you need to acquire a better living condition, and on, because of the change you might be afraid of. And we might add, in fact, we might stress very strongly, you are doing that basically because you are afraid of being afraid.
Yes. Yes.
That is the kicker. You were not afraid to push your way out of the womb, even though it is a traumatizing experience. You were not afraid to grow up. You were not afraid to learn to walk, to learn to speak. And so many other things.
Well,
So,
if I can add something to that.
indeed.
Precognitively, let's say I'm 6 or 8 months old and I'm in my crib and I'm crying for mommy, and mommy doesn't come for whatever reason. Benjamin Spock said don't pick her up, or she's making me whatever. And mommy doesn't come. And so I developed strategies, expectations, in order to stay safe. I don't even know I'm doing that. This is my nuclear family. This is what happens around here. I want mommy, daddy, I want to be safe. So whatever they're doing, I do. Whatever they say, I say. Whatever they believe, I believe. This happens without our knowing it. And it followed me through my entire life until I was able to dig down and find out what are those core beliefs I hold, and are they really me?
That
And
is
just as
correct.
said,
You develop personas to encapsulate your own fears and your own traumas and your own survival mechanisms. And it is only about, usually as we suggested, perhaps 35, 38 to 45 to 50 years even, and sometimes later, when you suddenly realize that you are actually quite a different person. Who you are, you do not know yet, but you know that most everything else you have acquired and you have worn it like clothes, but they are not you. So you have developed all these personality traits in order to cope, coping mechanisms. And then you suddenly have an intuitive understanding that begins to slowly gnaw at you, to begging you to look at the realities of existence. But your systems, the way they are set up, do not encourage that. They encourage you to keep repeating the same patterns. Do not venture into self-discovery. Keep doing what you're doing now, and no one will even know that you want to rock the boat. But rocking the boat is an essential. No one ever has truly gone through such life transformative stages without somewhere along the line feeling like they have been kicked in the gut. Because it is impactful. And the kind of project you were speaking about, that actually could be called an epic life transformation program.
yes.
And we emphasize the word epic, because it is not about clicking your heels 3 times and making wishful thinking. This is about biting deep into the stuff of reality creation and is literally waking up. Now, we believe perhaps it is time for a little break. What do you say, Maestro?
Yeah, I think this is a great place, and we'll take a break, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, Kris.
Indeed.
Thanks for watching, and if you would like to leave a question for Kris, drop it in the comments below. Myself, Serge, or someone from the Kris team will be checking and may use them to drive the discussion, put them in future episodes. So if you'd like to interact with the Kris community, feel free. Put your questions below, and we'd love to hear from you, and see you again next time.